Today I'm going to explain how solar power works in a really easy to understand way. And in the second half of the video, I'll let you know how to build a really cheap and easy system, as well as a trick for finding a cheap, more complex system. So hopefully this will be useful to you whether you have very minimal power needs or if you need a little more power to get by. This is just an overview, but it will give you the basics. I'm not an expert and it took me a while to understand everything. So I think I might know some of the questions you have. I'm going to start at the very beginning and get more detailed as we go. Number one, you need solar panels in sunlight for many hours to create power. That power gets stored in a battery, and you plug your devices into the battery to use power whenever you want, day or night. A few common types of solar panels are rigid panels like these, or the ones you get mounted on your roof, thin flexible panels, or suitcase-style foldable panels like these. A solar panel is the first component in our four-component system, and a battery is the third component. Now, this is really critical. There are two types of power, AC and DC. AC basically means a plug with 2 or 3 prongs, anything you would normally plug into a wall. DC power could be a wider variety of plugs, but generally speaking, it's your USB plugs and cigarette lighter 12-volt plugs. So even though your cell phone has a plug that goes into the wall, it also probably has this USB plug, so your cell phone is DC powered. And certain laptops you can power off DC. I use a MacBook Air and it charges with USB-C. The power that's stored in the battery is DC power only. If you want to have a really simple solar setup, you can choose to use DC power items only, those that are only charged with a USB cable or a 12-volt cigarette plug. There are all sorts of great gadgets that run off USB. You can have lights, electric blankets, fans, speakers, and much more. Just search for USB powered or 12-volt fill in the blank. But if you want to use AC items like a curling iron or a microwave that normally plug into a wall, then you need to change the power from DC to AC. The thing that does this is called an inverter. So far we have 3 main components: panels, batteries, and an inverter. There's one more main component, and that's a charge controller. This controls how much power goes into the battery from the solar panels and makes sure the power is cut off when the battery is full. So that gives us the basic 4 components in a solar system: panels, charge controller, batteries, and an inverter. When I started looking into solar, I got very overwhelmed with all the cables and fuses needed, and I was scared I wouldn't install it right and it would be unsafe. The good news is there are some easier ways around this. You can now buy an all-in-one system. These are called portable power stations. Some of the big brands are Goal Zero, Jackery, and Bluetti. These newer battery systems have a charge controller and an inverter built in. That means you just plug the Jackery into your solar panel and you're good to go. When you need to use AC, the house plug, you plug it right in. DC power? No problem. Some of them even have a cigarette lighter plug. The drawbacks of these systems is they're pretty expensive, pretty big, and usually heavy. Remember when I said if you want a really simple system, you can choose to only use DC power? Well, part of the reason these all-in-one systems are expensive is because of the inverter, the thing that changes the power from DC to AC. So here's the super simple, cheap system. If you can live off DC power only, meaning the devices that are powered by USB or 12-volt, then you can use something like this. This is a battery with a charge controller, but no inverter. Notice it doesn't have inputs for a traditional wall socket, only USB-A and USB-C and a 12-volt connector and a barrel plug to charge it. This thing is awesome. It's much cheaper, lighter, and smaller than the all-in-one systems. It doesn't put out as much power, but most DC items don't use that much power anyway. It will power a 12-volt electric blanket for 6 to 8 hours. This is also what I use to power my MacBook Air laptop. You can charge this battery with any type of solar panel that's 100 watts or less. Something you might not have realized is you can also charge this Renogy from inside the house with AC power. So you might not even need a solar panel. If you're going out for the weekend or a few days, or even if you have someplace you can go in and charge, you can charge this thing up, maybe have two, and you'll have plenty of power for your trip. I even use this in the house. There are a couple places where there's not an outlet, so I just hook this up to my laptop to power it if I can't reach an outlet. So there are a lot of uses for this thing. However, if you're only charging a few items, like maybe just your phone, you might be able to get away with using an even smaller battery and a cheaper, smaller solar panel, like a 30-watt solar panel. If the panel has a plug for USB built in, then it also has a charge controller. So you can plug your phone straight into the panel. But remember, it only works in daylight hours, and not so great when it's cloudy. But you can use this to charge your phone, to power your lights, or a fan at night. Anything with a USB connector. So that's the general outline on solar power. There are, of course, many other details, but at least you know the basics for now. Now, let's go a little further and talk about wattage. Can you run your microwave off a small Jackery? Well, it depends on the watts. These all-in-one power stations will have a label like 1002 WH. WH stands for watt hours. 10 watt hours would mean a device that uses 10 watts could run on the battery for 1 hour before the battery goes dead. It also means that a device that only uses 5 watts could run for 2 hours. So 1000 watt hours means you could run a device that uses 1000 watts for 1 hour. So if you wanted to run a 700 watt microwave and your power station has 400 watt hours, your microwave's not going to work. But if you have a 1000 watt hour power station, in theory, you could run it for a little over 1 hour. Now, microwaves usually state their wattage, but what about a little heater like this one? You can usually look in the specs when you buy it, but if it's something you already own, you can look on the device and it will usually state the watt somewhere. Be careful about using items that are really close to your stated limit. Many devices will use their stated wattage once they get going, but at startup, they'll use much more power. Like this little heater, it says 350 watts, but at startup, it goes much higher and trips off my 400 watt power station. Most power stations will have a surge power rating to cover these sorts of things, but you want to know what it is and check it. You'll also want to check the limits of the inverter. Remember, this is the thing that changes the DC power to AC. These have wattage limits too. Now, this is all just in theory to help you understand the watt-hour ratings. In real life, you don't ever want to run your batteries down to zero. You also don't want to run your inverter at its max for very long. So now, the second half of the video, how to find a more complex system for cheap. Remember, if you don't need an inverter, just do the simple setup I explained earlier. If you have the money, space, and muscles, then the all-in-one systems are definitely the way to go. They're easy to set up and use, and they can be easily charged from solar, but they're not cheap. So let's say you do need an inverter. You have some things that plug into a wall, or you need higher power. Here's my trick for building a cheap system. This is what I did. I bought an old Goal Zero Yeti 400 off of Craigslist. The older Goal Zeros had lead acid batteries, and the new ones have lithium. Lithium is better than lead acid for a lot of reasons, but you can replace the lead acid ones with a new battery, and you can't replace the lithium ones. Both types of batteries do eventually go bad, so it's nice with these older systems that you can just replace the battery. You don't have to buy a whole new power station with an inverter and controller. So you might look on eBay or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and find something like this. A Goal Zero with no battery. What's the use of that, you say? Well, you can replace the batteries on a Goal Zero Yeti 400 and a Goal Zero Yeti 1250 with a brand new battery. So what you're essentially buying is the inverter and charge controller. Now you can replace the battery with a brand new one. If you go to my channel page, I have a video on how I did this. So you can buy this main unit for pretty cheap and buy a battery to go in it. Now you're still saving some money over a brand new system. But the real trick is you can hook up 2 more batteries to this same system and triple the power. So instead of 396 watt hours, now you have 1188 watt hours. Now, you can't quite compare it to a power station of the same wattage because you're limited by the inverter in the main unit. The main unit has a 400 watt inverter, but you could run something under 400 watts for almost 3 hours. Or you could do this trick with the Yeti 1250, which has 1200 watt hours. So this way, you're saving a lot of money over a new power station, and you still have new batteries to work with. So this is what I did. I didn't really start out with this in mind, it's just how it worked out. I bought my Goal Zero off of Craigslist a few years ago, and the battery worked for a while, but then it needed to be replaced. So while I was replacing it, I went ahead and hooked up an extra battery to it. So now I have almost 800 watt hours. The only thing I really use this battery for is for my diesel heater. I also have 3 Renogy's I use for my phone and computer, lights, fan, and camera batteries. This is plenty of power for me at the moment. I'm always finding new gadgets I want to add to my arsenal though, so I've heard many people say you should get more battery power than you think you'll ever need. You'll probably end up finding a use for it. So if you found this video helpful for helping you understand solar or helping you come up with an idea to find some cheap solar, hit the like button, hit the green circle to subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks.